The courtroom was silent, but the silence was not peaceful. It was heavy, tense, like a storm about to break. Hundreds of alien eyes glowed from the dark seats of the hall, all fixed on one figure standing alone at the center. That figure was not one of them. It was a human. He stood tall, but inside his chest, his heart pounded like a drum. His wrists were bound by glowing cuffs, and the floor beneath his boots shimmered with strange light. He did not understand why he was brought here, and he did not know what crime he had committed. Above him sat the alien judges, three tall figures with pale skin that shimmered like glass. Their robes were long, their faces cold, and their voices carried through the hall like thunder. Behind them, on a raised throne, sat the Consul, the most powerful figure of this alien world. His eyes burned with wisdom and cruelty at the same time. The Consul's face never moved, but his presence pressed down on the human like a mountain. Beside the Consul, guards stood in silence, holding weapons that hummed softly with deadly energy. The human swallowed hard. He was a soldier, a survivor, a man who had faced danger before, but never like this. He felt like a lamb brought before wolves. Finally, the first judge spoke. His voice was slow, cold, and full of authority. "This trial is concluded," he said. "The verdict shall now be read." The hall went even more silent, as if everyone inside held their breath. The second judge rose and unfurled a scroll that glowed with symbols the human barely understood. But when the judge spoke again, the words were translated into his language by a device hidden in his ear. "The court has reached its decision," the judge said. "By the authority of the Consul and the law of our people, the human male before us must marry the granddaughters of the Consul." For a moment, the words did not make sense. The human blinked. His mouth opened slightly, but no sound came out. Then, the courtroom erupted. Gasps, whispers, shouts, laughter, all filled the chamber like a crashing wave. Aliens spoke quickly in their strange language, their voices sharp with shock and disbelief. Some looked at the human with pity, others with jealousy, and some with hunger in their eyes. The human felt as if the floor had dropped from under him. Mary, had he heard that right? He expected exile, prison, maybe even execution, but marriage? Marriage to alien women he had never even seen? He turned his head, looking toward the Consul. The old leader sat calmly, a faint smile curling at the edge of his lips. It was not the smile of a kind grandfather. It was the smile of a man who had just placed the final piece of a trap. "No," the human whispered under his breath. "This can't be real." The third judge raised his hand and banged the staff against the glowing floor. The sound echoed like thunder. "Silence," he roared. The hall slowly quieted, though the whispers never fully stopped. The human finally found his voice. "I don't understand," he said, his tone sharp, echoing in the alien hall. "Why? Me. I never asked for this. I never agreed to this." The judges ignored his protest. Instead, they looked toward the Consul. All eyes turned to the old man. Slowly, with the grace of someone who had ruled for too long, the Consul stood. His robes glittered with jewels, his crown shone like fire, and his voice carried the weight of iron. "This human," the Consul declared, "is chosen by fate and by law. Our traditions demand it. The bond must be sealed, or our future will fall into ruin." The alien crowd bowed their heads at his words, but not all looked convinced. The human could see fear and doubt in their eyes. "What bond?" the human demanded. "What law? I'm not one of you. I never swore to follow your rules." The Consul's eyes narrowed. "You are here. That is enough." The human's chest tightened. He wanted to fight, to break the glowing cuffs, to shout louder, but his voice would not matter here. The decision was already made. He was a piece in a game he could not see. Then, from the shadows at the edge of the hall, movement stirred. 3 veiled figures stepped forward, their footsteps light, their robes trailing across the floor like flowing water. The crowd grew silent again. Even the human could feel the change in the air. The 3 figures stopped at the foot of the throne. They lowered their heads, but did not remove their veils. The consul spread his hands proudly. "These," he said, his voice full of power, "are my granddaughters. They shall be your brides." The human's stomach turned. He tried to see their faces, but the veils hid everything except the faint glow of their eyes. One pair of eyes burned like fire, another shimmered like water, and the last glowed softly, like the moon. Each gaze carried a weight that unsettled him. A strange shiver ran through his body. These were not ordinary women. There was something different, something dangerous about them. The consul looked down at him with a cruel smile. "Do not resist, human. The court has spoken. The marriage shall bind our worlds together." The hall erupted once more, voices filling the space, but the human barely heard them. His mind spun in chaos. Why me? Why this verdict? What did these alien women want from him? But deep down, one thing became clear. This was no honor. This was no reward. This was a trap, and he was now caught inside it. The human could not sleep that night. He had been taken from the court straight into the consul's palace, escorted by guards who never spoke a word. The cuffs on his wrists had been removed, but he still felt the weight of invisible chains. Every corridor he walked through seemed endless, lit by glowing crystals and lined with alien statues whose stone eyes followed him. Finally, he was led into a chamber meant for him. The door closed, and the silence pressed against him harder than any guard. The room was too large, too decorated, too strange. Curtains shimmered like liquid silver, and the bed was carved from some dark stone, but he could not relax. His mind kept replaying the words of the court. The human male must marry the granddaughters of the consul. He sat on the edge of the stone bed, his hands buried in his hair. Marriage, brides, alien law. None of it made sense. But one thing gnawed at him more than anything else. Why? Why did the consul force this? Why him? He did not have to wait long for an answer. The door slid open without a sound. He looked up sharply, ready for guards, but it was not the guards. It was the consul himself. The old alien entered with slow, careful steps. His robe glowed faintly in the dark, and his crown caught the silver light of the chamber. His eyes gleamed like two cold stars, sharp and knowing. "You should rest," the consul said, his voice calm but commanding. "Tomorrow, the rituals begin." The human stood quickly, his fists tightening. "You can't do this. I never agreed." "I don't belong to your laws." The consul smiled faintly, but it was not a smile of kindness. It was the smile of a predator who already had his prey. "You misunderstand, human. This is not about agreement. This is about survival." The human narrowed his eyes. "Survival? Whose survival? Yours or mine?" The consul's gaze hardened. "Both." For a moment, silence hung between them. The human felt the weight of the old alien's words. He wanted to demand answers. But the consul continued before he could speak. "Our people are bound by law older than memory," the consul said, walking slowly around the room. "My bloodline is the heart of our rule. But my bloodline is cursed. Every male who has taken my granddaughters as brides has died. They're powerful, too powerful for men of our kind. The bond destroys them." The human's chest tightened. The whispers he had heard in the courtroom now made sense. This was not marriage. This was a death sentence. "So you found a loophole," the human said bitterly. "If alien men die, you give them to me instead. A human, an outsider, a sacrifice." Consul stopped walking and looked directly at him. "A savior," he corrected. The word cut like a blade. The human shook his head. "No, I don't buy that. You're using me. You're hiding something." The consul's eyes glowed faintly, his face unreadable. "Perhaps both are true." The human stepped closer, his voice low. "If what you say is true, then why not? Let them choose. Why force them? Why force me?" The consul chuckled softly, but there was no warmth in it, because choice is a luxury of the weak. "You think we stand here by chance?" "No, we stand because we do what must be done. You were not chosen randomly. You were brought here for a reason." The human frowned. "What reason?" The Consul leaned closer, his voice dropping into a whisper. Because you are strong. You are different. You come from a world even harsher than ours. My granddaughters need a husband who will not break. If you succeed, you will not only save them, you will save yourself. The human's heart pounded. He wanted to shout too, argue, to demand freedom, but a part of him knew the Consul was not lying. Something dangerous, something ancient, hung over this family. Before he could reply, the Consul turned and began to walk toward the door. Rest, human, he said. The first granddaughter will visit you soon. Do not fear her. She is fire. But fire can warm as well as burn. The door slid shut behind him, leaving the human alone once more, but now his thoughts were darker than before. He sat back on the bed, staring at the ceiling. His fists trembled with anger, but his chest was heavy with unease. The Consul's words repeated in his mind, cursed bloodline. Every male dies. Outsider savior. He did not want to believe it. He did not want to be part of it, yet he knew he had no choice. Outside his chamber, faint voices echoed down the palace. Hall's guards murmured. Servants whispered. Somewhere, not too far away, he heard the soft laughter of women. It was not joyful laughter. It was sharp, secretive, almost mocking the granddaughters, his supposed brides. He closed his eyes. But their glowing eyes from the courtroom peered in his mind. Fire, water, moonlight. Each one carried a power he could not explain, and each one was now tied to him. The night grew colder. He wrapped himself in the strange blanket, but it did not bring comfort. He thought of home, of earth, of freedom. But those things felt distant now, like dreams he could never reach. Instead, all he could see was the Consul's face, cold and full of secrets. The old alien was not only a ruler, he was a schemer, a master of plans. And the human realized something terrifying. The Consul had not given him brides out of kindness. He had given him brides as weapons, and soon those weapons would be in his bed. The next morning came heavy with silence. The human had not slept much. Every sound in the palace corridors had kept him awake, the distant footsteps of guards, the rustle of silken robes, the faint hum of strange machines hidden in the walls. And through all of it, the Consul's words haunted him. The first granddaughter will visit you soon. She is fire. He had imagined many things during the night. Would they be monsters? Would they even look human? Or would they be so alien that he could not even face them without fear? But nothing prepared him for what actually happened. The door to his chamber slid open. 3 figures entered, veiled as before, their footsteps soft against the stone floor. The guards outside did not move, did not speak. It was as if the palace itself held its breath. The human rose to his feet, his body tense. The figures stopped, a few steps away. Then, one by one, they lifted their veils. His breath caught. The first granddaughter had blazing red hair that shimmered like liquid fire. Her eyes glowed amber, sharp and untamed, like the heart of a burning flame. Her features were strong, her stance proud, her beauty wild and dangerous. She looked at him with defiance, as if daring him to meet her gaze. The second granddaughter was completely different. Her skin glowed faintly blue, her hair flowing like dark rivers, her eyes soft and silver like moonlit water. She held herself with calm grace, her movements slow and fluid, almost hypnotic. Unlike her sister, she looked at the human with quiet curiosity, as if studying him. The third granddaughter unsettled him the most. She was pale, almost luminous, her hair white as snow, her eyes glowing softly with an eerie light. She smiled. Faintly, but it was not a warm smile. It was unreadable, mysterious. Her beauty was haunting, her presence heavy. As if she carried secrets older than the palace itself. The 3 stood before him now, unveiled, and the human finally understood why the courtroom had gasped. They were beautiful, yes, but their beauty was not safe. It was sharp, dangerous, like walking through a garden full of flowers that hid poison. The first one spoke, her voice like crackling fire. So, this is the human they chained us to. The human frowned. Chained us? You think I wanted this? She smirked. Good, at least you have some spirit. I would hate to be given a weakling. The second granddaughter placed her hand lightly on her sister's arm. Do not be cruel, Saria, she said softly, her voice like flowing water. He is trapped, just as we are. Trapped, the human repeated, his chest tightening. He looked at them carefully. So you didn't want this either? Pale One finally spoke. Her voice was soft, almost musical, but it carried something dark beneath it. Want? No. But what we want doesn't matter. What matters is what must be done. Her words sent a chill down his spine. The fiery one Saria crossed her arms. Listen, human, I don't know why grandfather chose you. Maybe he thinks you'll survive where others didn't. Maybe he just wants to laugh when you fail. Understand this, we are not fragile. We are not prizes. We are curses dressed as brides. The human's heart pounded. Then why go along with it? Why not fight him? The watery one lowered her gaze. Because we already tried. Silence fell. The humans stared, waiting, but none of them explained further. The weight of their words told him enough. These women were not only victims, they were part of something darker, bound by traditions and laws he could not yet understand. The pale one took a step closer. She looked into his eyes with that strange, unsettling smile. Are not like the others. You smell of iron and storm. You come from a world that eats its children and forces them to grow teeth. Perhaps you are the one who will not break. Her words twisted inside him. He did not know whether to feel insulted, flattered, or afraid. Saria laughed coldly. Perhaps he will burn like the rest. The human clenched his fists. I'm not afraid of you. Saria's smile sharpened. Good, you'll need that. The watery one, her name, he realized, was not yet spoken, finally looked at him fully. Do not mistake us, human. We are not your enemies. But we are. Not your friends either. What happens next? Depends on you. The pale one leaned close enough that he felt the cold of her presence. She whispered a single sentence into his ear. Don't trust the Consul. He is not saving you. He is using you. The human froze. Her words matched the fear that had been growing inside him since the court. Before he could ask more, the three sisters turned together. Their veils dropped once again, hiding their faces. They walked back toward the door, their movements in perfect rhythm, their silence heavier than words. At the doorway, Saria looked back one last time. Tomorrow, the first ritual begins. If you are weak, you will not see another sunrise. Then they were gone. The human stood alone once more, his chest tight, his thoughts spiraling. He had seen their faces, he had heard their voices. And now, he knew the truth. These granddaughters were not brides. They were trials, and each trial could destroy him. The chamber felt colder after the granddaughters left. The human stood in the middle of the room, staring at the heavy door that had sealed behind them. His chest still carried the echo of their voices, the fire in Saria's sharp words, the calm water in the second sister's gentle tone, and the pale one's haunting whisper, "Don't trust the Consul." He sat down slowly, his head heavy with thoughts. He had faced battlefields, had seen blood and fire, had stared death in the face many times before. But this was different. This was not a war he could fight with his fists or weapons. This was a game of laws, traditions, and secrets he did not understand. He pressed his palms against his eyes and whispered, "What do they want from me?" The palace gave him no answer. That night, he tried to rest, but sleep would not come. The bed was too hard, the air too thin, the silence too heavy. Somewhere far away, he could hear the faint sound of chanting, a ritual song that rose and fell like the tide. It chilled him to the bone. Then, closer, he heard whispers. At first he thought it was his imagination. The whispers grew clearer. He rose quietly and stepped toward the door. The stone was thick, but the voices seeped through the cracks. They were the sisters. He could not understand every word. They spoke in their native tongue, but some phrases broke through. Curse remains. He will not last. Grandfather deceives him unless he chooses. The human clenched his jaw. They were talking about him, about his fate. He stepped back, away from the door, His pulse quickened. They knew more than they were telling him. Each one seemed bound by fear, yet each carried a piece of truth. He had to decide whom to trust. But trust was dangerous here. Hours crawled by until finally exhaustion took him. His eyes closed and he drifted into uneasy sleep. He dreamed of fire, Saraya's burning eyes, her laugh sharp like a blade. She circled him, testing his strength, pushing him to fight, and the scene shifted to water. The second granddaughter, calm, silver-eyed, whispered soothing words, pulling him under a dark current where he could not breathe. Then pale hands reached out from the shadows, cold and soft, wrapping around his throat. The third granddaughter's smile glowed faintly as she whispered again, "Don't trust the Consul." He woke with a start. Sweat ran down his face. The chamber was still dark, but he was not alone. A shadow moved at the far corner of the room. He shot to his feet. There, the figure stepped into the faint light. It was the second granddaughter, the one of water and calm. Her silver eyes glowed softly. "You shouldn't be here," he said. His voice was low, sharp. She raised a hand gently. "Do not fear. I came alone. I only wish to speak." The human narrowed his eyes. "Why?" She walked closer, her movements graceful like waves across a quiet sea. "Because you deserve the truth. Saraya is proud and Alira is dangerous. But I do not wish for you to die." "Then tell me," he said. His fists tightened. "Why is this happening? Why did your grandfather force this?" Her gaze fell to the floor. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then she whispered, "Because if he does not, our bloodline ends, and with it, his power." The words struck him like a blow. "So that's it. I'm not a man to him. I'm just a tool, a key to keep his throne." She looked up, her silver eyes soft with pity. "But it is more complicated than you think. The curse is real. Every male before you has died. Alien men cannot bear our bond. They wither and break. Perhaps you are different." The human shook his head. "Or perhaps I'm just the next name on the list." Her lips trembled. She stepped closer, her voice urgent. "No, listen to me. Must survive, because if you don't, then we will never be free." Her words sent a chill down his spine. Free? From what? Before she could answer, the door shifted suddenly. The guards' voices echoed from the hall. She froze, her eyes wide with fear. "They must not find me here," she whispered. She grabbed his hand, her touch cold and trembling. "Remember, this grandfather is not your ally. And not all sisters are your enemies." Then she pulled away, her body dissolving into shimmering light. She vanished as if swallowed by the air. The human stood frozen, his hands still tingling from her touch. The door opened, and two guards entered, their faces expressionless. They scanned the room, then left without a word. The silence returned. He sat back on the bed, his thoughts spiraling again. His heart beat fast, not only from fear, but from something else. Confusion, uncertainty, the weight of choice. 3 brides, 3 powers. 1 consul, pulling all the strings? What was he supposed to do? He clenched his fists. He could not simply obey. But if he fought, he might die. If he trusted the wrong sister, he might be destroyed. This was not a marriage. This was a test, and the test was about to begin. The palace was never truly silent. Even when the corridors were empty, the walls seemed to breathe. Faint whispers ran through the stone, as if the palace itself carried memories it refused to let go. The human felt it every time he walked alone, escorted by guards who said nothing but watched his every step. For 3 days, he had been kept inside the consul's domain. Rituals were spoken of, but never explained. The granddaughters appeared at strange hours, their presence more unsettling than reassuring. One tested him with riddles, another with questions, and the last with chilling silence. But one night as he wandered the halls, searching for air, he found something different. A door, half hidden behind heavy curtains of silver thread. It looked unused, untouched, yet something about it called to him. He glanced around. No guards. No footsteps. Shh. Carefully, he pulled the curtain aside and pushed the door open. Inside was a narrow stairway spiraling down into darkness. Was heavy, damp, carrying the scent of dust and time. He hesitated, then stepped forward. The stairs seemed endless, but at the bottom he reached a vast chamber. Unlike the glittering halls above, this place was cold and plain. Stone walls stretched into shadow. Rows of shelves lined the room, filled with ancient scrolls and tablets glowing faintly. It was a library, a secret one. His breath caught. Answers existed? They would be here? He moved slowly among the shelves, pulling scrolls, reading what little the translator in his ear could manage. Most spoke of laws, traditions, ceremonies. But then he found something different. A set of records. Bound in dark leather, the symbol of the Consul's crest was burned into its surface. He opened it at first. It was genealogy, names, dates, bloodlines. Then he saw the pattern. Generation after generation, the record showed the same tragedy, husbands dead within. A year, some of sickness, some of madness, some of sudden accidents. The women lived, always, but the men, always gone. His stomach tightened. It was true. The curse was real. He flipped through faster. Each granddaughter bore strange markings at birth, described as the signs of the bond. They were not ordinary women. They were vessels of some ancient power, power that devoured men who touched. It had been he found something that made his hands tremble. One page had been written in human language, crude, broken, but clear enough. It was older than his arrival, older than his lifetime, spoke of a prophecy, the blood of glass will shatter unless bound to iron from beyond the stars. Only the outsider may carry the flame without burning. Only the stranger may hold the tide without drowning. Only the foreign hand may touch the pale moon without fading. The human's breath froze. Iron from beyond the stars. It was him. Humanity. Outsiders. This wasn't random. This wasn't luck. They had been waiting for someone like him. His knees weakened as the truth settled. The Consul had not chosen him out of convenience. The Consul had expected him. Now you see. The voice came from the shadows. He spun, heart pounding. One of the granddaughters stepped out from between the shelves. It was Sarah to the Fiery. One, her amber eyes glowed in the dim light, sharp and merciless. You shouldn't be here, she said, her voice low, dangerous. He clenched the record in his hands. You knew. She tilted her head. Of course I knew. We all knew. Why we didn't fight too hard in the court, 'cause deep down even we wonder. Maybe you are the one? The human's jaw tightened. The one to save you, or the one to die like the rest? Saria's lips curved into a bitter smile. Both. She walked closer, her presence like heat pressing against him. Do you understand now? You are not just a husband. You are a gamble. A shield against a curse older than our people. He held up the record, and if I refuse, her eyes flashed. Then the curse continues. Our bloodline withers, and you will not leave this palace alive. The words hit like stone. For a moment, the silence between them grew unbearable. Finally, Syria leaned closer, her eyes burning into his. I don't want you to die, human, but I will not weep if you do. If you survive, perhaps you are worthy of us. Not, then you were just another man swallowed by fate. She turned and walked away, her fiery hair glowing in the dark like a burning trail. The sound of her footsteps faded until only silence remained. The human looked down at the record again, his hand trembling. The outsider. The iron from beyond the stars. He closed the book slowly, his jaw tightening. For the first time since this nightmare began, felt a spark inside him, not of fear, but of defiance. Maybe they thought he was just a pawn. Maybe they thought he would die like the rest. But he was human. And humans had a history of defying curses, breaking rules, and surviving where no one else could. He placed the book back on the shelf and whispered into the silence, We'll see who survives. The days that followed were like walking through a battlefield without weapons. The human could feel eyes on him wherever he went. Guards shadowed his every step. Servants whispered when he passed. Even the palace walls seemed alive, carrying secrets through their stone veins. But the greatest tension came not from the palace itself, it came from the granddaughters. They appeared at different times, never together for long. Each encounter felt like a test, as if they were studying him, measuring him, deciding whether he was strong enough or weak enough to break the fire bride's area. The fiery one was the first to challenge him openly. She dragged him into the palace's training arena. A vast chamber of stone and sand lit by glowing crystals above. "You are to marry us," she said, tossing him a wooden staff. "You must prove you are not fragile." He caught the staff, his jaw tight. "You want to fight me?" Her amber eyes blazed. "I want to see if you are worth my time." Attacked without warning. Her strikes were sharp, fast, full of fury. He barely had time to block, each blow rattling through his bones. She was not just skilled, she was merciless. Every movement screamed domination. He stumbled but refused to fall. Anger surged through him, and with a sudden burst of strength, he pushed back. His staff slammed into the ground beside her, sending dust flying. For the first time, she stopped. Her lips curved into a dangerous smile. "Not bad, human. You might survive longer than I thought." But her eyes told a different story. She was testing him, yes, but also waiting for the moment he slipped. The water bride later that evening. He found the silver-eyed sister waiting by a fountain in the palace garden. Unlike Saria, she did not carry weapons or threats. Quietly, her hands skimming the surface of the water, ripples glowing beneath her touch. "You fought well," she said softly when he approached. "But strength alone will not save you." He frowned. "Then what will?" Her gaze lifted to his, calm but piercing. "Balance. Patience. Trust." He let out a bitter laugh. "Trust. In this place? With your grandfather watching me like a hawk?" Her expression did not change. "Trust is dangerous, yes, but so is doubt. If you trust no one, you will stand alone. And no one survives alone." Her words gnawed at him. Was she trying to help, or was this another test? When he did not answer, she smiled faintly. "I do not wish for you to die, human. Remember that?" Then she rose and walked away, her steps so light they barely disturbed. The grass dot the pale bride that night. The pale one came to him uninvited. He woke to find her standing at the foot of his bed. Her white hair glowing in the dim light, her soft smile sharp as a knife. "Do you always sneak into rooms?" asked. His voice low, uneasy. "Only when I want to know what a man dreams," she said, her tone almost playful. He stiffened. "And what did I dream?" She tilted her head. "Of fire burning you, of water drowning you, of me holding your throat." His chest tightened. "How do you know that?" Her smile widened just a little, because dreams are only shadows of truth, and I live in shadows. She leaned closer, her cold presence chilling the air. "Be careful, human. Not every enemy holds a weapon. And sometimes they hold your hand." Before he could reply, she vanished into the dark as silently as she had appeared. The ceremony approaches by the fourth day. The palace was in motion. Servants decorated the halls with banners and lights. Strange incense filled the air. The Consul's voice carried through the corridors as he gave orders. The marriage ceremony was being prepared. The human felt the pressure building like a storm. He could not escape. The palace was a prison dressed in silk. But he could not simply accept either. Every moment reminded him that this marriage was not about love, not even about duty. It was about power. It was about a curse. At night he returned to the secret library, searching for more answers. He found fragments of old prophecies, each darker than the last. One spoke of blood spilled on the wedding night. Another warned of the outsider who either saves the bloodline or ends it forever. He closed the scrolls with shaking hands. He was walking into a trap, and yet, maybe also into destiny. Shadows move, but danger was not only inside the family. That same night, as he walked back to his chamber, a blade cut the air beside his neck. He spun, narrowly avoiding death. A figure in black lunged at him, silent and fast. He fought back, wrestling the attacker in the corridor. Their struggle ended when guards rushed in, weapons glowing, forcing the assassin to flee into the shadows. The consul arrived moments later, his face calm but his eyes blazing. "There are those who do not want this union," he said coldly. "Rather kill you than see the curse broken." The human, panting, wiped blood from his arm. "Then maybe they're smarter than me." The consul's thin smile returned. "No, human. They are cowards. You may yet be something greater." The weight of choice that night, lying in his chamber, the human stared at the ceiling, his mind storming. 3 brides, 1 curse. A court hungry for blood, assassins waiting in the dark. Every path was dangerous. If he submitted, he risked death by the bond. If he fought, he risked death by blade. And if he trusted the wrong sister, he risked something worse than death. But as fear twisted inside him, so did something else, a spark of defiance. Humans had always faced impossible odds, and sometimes, against all reason, they had one. Clenched his fists, he would not be their pawn. Not the consuls, not the courts, not even the brides. Whatever destiny waited in that ceremony, he would face it his way, and he swore to himself, if they thought he would break, they were wrong. The palace had never been louder. From the highest towers to the lowest halls, drums pounded, horns echoed, and thousands of voices chanted. Nobles in jeweled robes filled the seats of the great chamber, waiting for the moment they had been promised, breaking of the curse. Soldiers lined the walls, their weapons glowing, their eyes sharp. At the center of it all stood the human, caught like prey in a net, woven by ancient law. His body was wrapped in ceremonial cloths stitched with glowing symbols. They felt heavy, as if they were chains disguised as silk. He looked up at the raised throne, where the consul sat, calm and certain. Behind him, the 3 judges glared down, their staffs ready to strike the floor at the first sign of defiance. Then the brides entered. Saria's fiery hair blazed beneath the crystal lights, fierce eyes cutting through the crowd like blades. Noria moved beside her, calm as flowing water, her silver gaze steady and haunting. And last came Alira, pale as moonlight, her smile small but unreadable, her very presence sending chills across the chamber. The crowd gasped at their beauty, but the human saw beyond that beauty. He saw danger, he saw secrets, he saw 3 forces that could either destroy him or set him free. The consul raised his arms, his voice booming. "Today, the bond is sealed. Today, our curse ends. This human, chosen by fate, will stand where all others have fallen." The nobles cheered, but the human's chest tightened. He remembered the records he had found in the secret library. Every husband dead within a year. Only the outsider may survive. He remembered Saria's warning, Nuria's whispers, Alira's haunting truth, and he remembered his own vow, "I will not be a pawn." The ritual began. The sisters circled him slowly. The chanting of the judges grew louder, shaking the walls. Strange light rose from the floor, wrapping around his body like chains of fire and ice. Saria stepped forward first, her hand, hot as flame, pressed against his chest. Her amber eyes locked on his. "Do you accept me, human?" she asked, her voice sharp and unyielding. His throat tightened. He wanted to shout no, but then he saw the challenge in her eyes, the fire that demanded strength, not surrender. He swallowed hard. "I accept your fire, but I will not bow to it." The crowd gasped. Saria's lips curved into a dangerous smile, but she did not pull away. Then Nurja approached. Her hand touched his arm, cool as water, soft as silk. Her silver eyes shimmered. "Do you accept me, human?" she asked gently. He met her gaze, his voice low. "I accept your calm, but I will not drown in it." The water's chill pressed against his skin, but he held strong. Finally, Alira stepped close. Her pale fingers rested lightly against his cheek, her cold touch sinking deep into him. Her smile did not change. "Do you accept me, human?" she whispered, her voice soft and dangerous. He looked into her glowing eyes. "I accept your shadow, but I will not fade in it. Her smile widened, just enough to send a shiver through him. The light around them surged. The consul rose higher, his hands outstretched. Now the bond is sealed. The human's voice cut through the chanting like a blade. No, the hall froze. Silence crashed down like thunder. The judges stopped mid-chant, their eyes wide. The consul's face twisted with rage. "You dare?" he thundered. "The law demands this." The human stepped forward, ripping the glowing cloth from his shoulders. "The law is a cage. Your curse is real, but your answer is a lie. You don't want to save your bloodline. You want to save your throne. You would rather chain me to these women than admit your power is failing." The crowd erupted in shouts. Some cried treason, others cried truth. Guards moved uneasily, waiting for orders. The consul's voice roared above them. "You are nothing, human. Without me, you are dead." The human glared up at him. "No, without me, your bloodline is already dead, and you know it." Gasps filled the hall. The consul's grip on his staff trembled with fury. Before he could order the guards, Alira suddenly stepped forward, her pale body glowing brighter. "He speaks the truth," she said, her voice sharp as a knife. "The curse cannot be broken by force. It can only be broken by choice." Nerja moved beside her, her silver eyes steady. "If he accepts us freely, the bond has meaning. If not, it is only chains." Even Saria, fierce and proud, finally nodded. Better a husband who fights than a corpse who kneels. The consul's face burned with rage. His granddaughters had turned against him. The hall shook with chaos. Half the nobles shouted for the marriage, half cried for freedom. The judges hesitated, unsure. The human stood tall in the center, his voice steady. "I will marry only if it is my choice. Not because of your laws, not because of your threats, but because I decide." For a long moment, silence ruled the hall. Then, slowly, the three granddaughters bowed their heads together. Their voices rose as one. "Then we accept your choice, human." The light around them flared, so bright it blinded the hall. The chains of the ritual shattered, dissolving into dust. The crowd gasped as the curse cracked. Its weight broken, not by fear, but by defiance. The consul staggered back, fury blazing in his eyes. He raised his staff to strike, but the judges slammed theirs first. "The law is clear," they said together. "The bond stands by choice. The curse is ended." The human's chest rose and fell, his fists still tight, his heart still pounding. But he did not bow, he did not break. He turned to the consul, his voice low but full of steel. "Your throne may remain, but your control is gone. From now on, your bloodline lives, because I let it." The hall erupted again, shouts of awe and fear filling the air. And in that moment, the human realized something greater. He had not only survived, he had rewritten the destiny of a cursed family, defied the most powerful man on the planet, and proven what only humans could prove. That, when the universe forced them into chains, they always found a way to break free.